Our top stories on E&E Weekly Thursday edition. Cylinders. Federal government to review and evaluate the price of domestic gas. And with a gradual recovery in oil prices and the continuous rise in coronavirus cases around the world, will there be a fresh introduction of lockdown, and how will this affect oil prices? We'll be having a chat with Dr. EMMANUEL UDUGHAN, former governor of Delta State. And moving on, NNPC records a trading deficit of 9.53 billion naira for the month of March 2020. And on power, Nigeria receives $750 million from the World Bank to boost the power sector. And on environment, the Minister of Environment calls on environmental health officers to undertake regular and strategic places for COVID-19 guidelines. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome to E&E Weekly Thursday edition. I am Joycelyn Elakeche Ada. For more than a week now, oil prices have consolidated around $40 per barrel. So far, OPEC Plus production cuts appear to be going well. However, the Organization of Oil Producing and Non-Producing Countries say some of its members are yet to make these cuts. Nigeria, Iraq, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Angola are believed to have made production cuts yet. But OPEC says there is hope that these markets have been effectively rebalanced. Let's take a look at the OPEC oil prices for today. Okay, stop. Well, oil prices have witnessed a gradual recovery over the past few weeks. The gradual rise in oil pricing can be attributed to OPEC production quotas and the gradual comeback in OPEC prices. Let's start with the current rise in the OPEC price, oil country prices. Nigeria is being steady with $40 and some cents, and it's been this way from the past few weeks, about 2-3 weeks now. Nigeria has been on $40 to $41. And still on OPEC oil prices, the committee, However, there seems to be fear of a wave of coronavirus pandemic, a second wave of the pandemic, as countries around the world are experiencing the world increase in new cases. And the big question is, will there be a second phase of lockdown in the country and around the world in general? And if there is, how will that affect the new normal in quote oil prices? To analyze these questions, we will be having a chat with Dr. EMMANUEL UDUGHAN right about now. You're welcome, Dr. UDUGHAN. Hello, sir, can you hear us? Dr. UDUGHAN, can you hear us?
Thank you.
Okay, let's start with the current rise of the coronavirus in the country. Even with all of the safety guidelines being introduced by the government, we still keep recording fresh, new, higher cases, not just in Nigeria, but around the world in general. Do you think that we're going to go into another lockdown session now that we are having so much more cases of the coronavirus in the country?
Sorry, you're breaking up.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me
What I
now?
what I heard was there are new cases still springing up in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yes. Do you think that with this continuous new emergence of cases, do you think the country will go into another set of lockdown?
Okay. It's possible. Now, what has happened worldwide is that some countries that ease the lockdown, early enough, so to say, at a point they had to lock down again because as soon as they eased the lockdown, the cases started rising. And the experts, they advise that people should be, that is, countries should be very cautious in easing the lockdown. Because, like we all know, this disease is a very new disease. Nobody knows the full epidemiology. Nobody knows the pattern. A lot of things are not known about the disease. So whatever we are seeing, we are storing eventually to be able to assess what the pattern of the disease. So when some countries, because of the serious economic effects of the disease, they were forced to open up, to ease the lockdown. But as soon as they eased the lockdown, the cases started rising again. And of course, because it was rising again, they went back to lock down their various communities.
But if we do go into another round of lockdown, how is this going to affect oil prices? Because you do know that Nigeria is one country that its economy is particularly dependent on oil. So if we go into another set of lockdown, how will this affect our economy? Already, well, first of all,
let me say where we are now, I don't advise a lockdown because of the effects on the economy. But if it continues to get worsened, worse than what it is now, especially if the number of deaths are rising, then we may go back to being locked down. If the deaths are not rising, like those people dying, if the numbers are not rising, it's just people becoming sick and getting well, it may not be advisable because that helps us in what they call the herd immunity, which is the most probable way of reducing the disease. Now, if there's a lockdown, obviously what happens, the effect of lockdown is that people's movements are restricted. And when movements are restricted, goods and services, all the movements are restricted. So the need for energy, the need for petrol is reduced. And once the need for energy, petrol or power, whatever, once it is reduced, then the need for, of course, the price of oil slumps. And that is what happened in the first lockdown. And it's likely to happen again if there's a lockdown.
Okay, let's talk about the fact that new cases, keep emerging. Does that mean that Nigerians are not keeping the safety guidelines, the COVID-19 safety guidelines? I mean, with all of these guidelines, why do we keep recording new cases?
You see, I don't want to limit it to Nigeria in terms of living. I mean, people are living in denial of these new cases, and because people are living in denial that they can afford to do all the various various protests around the world, where it was as if nothing was happening in terms of COVID. But Nigerians are also living in denial, and unfortunately, the people that are living in denial are not just the lower rung of the society, but also the upper, even the educated and the elites. A lot of them are living in denial. It's very difficult sometimes to convince people who are even on the same level or even higher than me that there's COVID, because everybody is saying it's malaria, it's malaria, it's malaria. Of course, we got one top man who came out of the hospital and was saying that it was malaria. So it's very embarrassing, but we are happy that people are not dying as was predicted. But if this continues, this denial continues, then the cases are likely to rise. But what I will advise really, okay, go on.
Okay, before we go, the fact that presently, you know, the country has not lifted all of the lockdown restrictions. Some businesses are still closed as it is. And you know, Nigeria, we are the kind of people that live on daily income. Now, with this, you know, new cases and people living in denial, do we see the restrictions being lifted on some of these other businesses? Would we see that soon, or are we going to continue with, you know, the 3 days market restrictions and all of that?
No, we can't continue that forever, because you see, if you continue like that, the more you continue the lockdown, the more the economy declines. Yeah. And when the economy declines, like you rightly noted, most of our people are daily income people. People who sell on the street, people who sell in the market, people who sell in the motor parks, people who collect daily income, even taxi drivers, also, you know, they form the bulk of the population. So when you lock down like that, you shut down that economy, and they become hungry. And of course, when they are hungry, it's not very nice for any leader to see the people hungry. So my advice is, the lockdown is being gradually eased off, and I think it should continue, whether the cases are rising or not, except it gets to a proportion where a lot more people are dying, you know, than acceptable. But now, I don't advise any lockdown. We should not be in a hurry. I just advise that we increase the advocacy, you know, telling people, yes, you can go for your businesses, but in doing so, there are some personal things you need to do. You need to wash your hands more. You need to wear your face mask. You need to protect yourself against, that is, physical or social distancing. So those personal protective issues have to be emphasized. Advocacy has to be carried out more.
Okay, one final question before we let you go. Our airports, our motor parks, our schools are still shut down. Do you see a likely situation whereby in the next few weeks we would see an opening to those areas, especially the schools?
No, I don't advise the one for schools yet. I will advise airports and motor parks.
But if motor parks and airports are open, the interaction and mixing of people, it's the same thing as schools.
That is where a lot of preventive measures have to be taken at the airports and at the motor parks. Now, preventive measures can be taken in such a way that the interaction between two people is minimized. There will be physical distancing, and of course, the issue of putting on face masks, the issue of hand washing,
and all of that,
facilities all over the place, you know, must be put in those places. But for schools, because you cannot control children, it's difficult to control children, but it's easier to control the adults. So for motor parks and for airports, yes, I advise that it be open. That's the only way our economy will pick up.
Thank you very much, Dr. Udughan. Dr. Udughan, thank you for being on E&E Weekly. Hopefully, we'll have you some more time on this program.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll bring you stories from the oil and gas sector. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is E&E Weekly. The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Chief Timmy Silva, has inaugurated the Committee on Gas Sector-Wide Review of the Domestic Gas Pricing Framework. The committee is charged with the responsibility of evaluating and reviving the price of gas in the country. Inaugurating the committee, Chief Silva said there is a need for an appropriate price system that will be of great advantage to the manufacturing industry and Nigerian citizens. He said this would boost the gas sector, home and abroad, and will make gas more affordable to the populace. He explained that gas is being sold cheaply to investors and sold at a high cost to domestic sector. According to him, Nigerians now believe that gas is more expensive than diesel. The minister said it is the responsibility of the ministry to make gas more affordable as Nigeria is blessed with abundant gas deposits. According to the newly inaugurated committee, Chief Silva said the committee is deliberately enlarged and structured to accommodate people with diverse opinions, dedication, and commitment. He disclosed that members of the committee are to review the domestic gas price and benchmark, make recommendations for an appropriate gas price for the respective gas sectors, make evaluations, technical suggestions with a turnaround time of 30 days. The minister also announced that President Muhammadu Buhari has slated the flag-off of the AKK pipeline construction for 30th of June 2020. Meanwhile, global natural gas output is set to fall by 2.6% this year because of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is after it was previously expected to grow. Natural gas production was expected to rise to 4,233 billion cubic meters in 2020 from 4,069 billion cubic meters last year. But now, production is expected to be at 3,962 billion cubic meters for this year, and for 2021, it is expected to rise to 4,015 billion cubic meters in 2021, and to 4,094 billion cubic meters in 2022. The most affected output in percentage terms is associated gas from oil fields. This is a form of natural gas found in deposits of petroleum, which was initially forecast to stay largely flat year on from a 2019 level of 547 billion cubic meters, and now it is expected to fall by 5.5% to 517 billion cubic meters in 2020. Before rising again to 530 billion cubic meters in 2021, and for 2022, 542 billion cubic meters. An NNPC has reported its monthly financial operations in its latest edition. It recorded a trading deficit of 9.53 billion naira for the month of March 2020. This is compared to the 3.95 billion naira surplus posted in February 2020. According to the report, 300% decline is as a result of the huge decrease of 181% in its upstream subsidiary. That's the Nigerian Petroleum Development Company, which is due to decline in crude oil prices. The National Oil said the declines resulted from the coronavirus-induced global slowdown, which led to reduced exports and dwindling world oil consumption, and also combined with deficit posted by the refineries, amongst others. The report stated that 218.37 billion cubic feet of natural gas was produced in March 2020, translating to an average daily production of 749.65 million standard cubic feet per day. The report also stated that 55.63% of the average daily gas produced was commercialized, while the balance of 44.37% was re-injected and used as upstream fuel gas or was flared. The corporation reported that gas flare rate was 9.8 0.08% for the month of March, compared with average gas flare rate of 8.43% in March 2019 to March 2020. The report also stated that period-to-date production from joint ventures, production sharing contracts, and MPDC contributed about 69.37%, 21.67%, and 8.97% respectively to the total national gas production. Out of the 218.37 billion cubic feet of gas supplied in March 2020, 173 billion cubic feet of gas was commercialized, consisting of 33.45 billion cubic feet and 87.28 billion cubic feet for the domestic and export market, respectively. The report indicated a total crude oil and gas export sale of $256.19 million in March 2020, which decreased by 30.89% compared to last month. Of the total sales, crude oil export sales contributed $184.59 million, which is 72.05% of the dollar transaction, compared with $281.14 million contributed in the previous month, while the export gas sales amount to $71.60 million in the month. In the report, NNPC stated that it had continued to diligently monitor the daily stock of PMS to achieve smooth distribution of petroleum products and zero fuel queues across the nation. It also reported that within the period under review, 19 pipeline points were vandalized, representing about 47% decrease from the 32 points recorded in February 2020. Atlas Cove Mosimi accounted for 53%, while Mosimi Ibadan recorded 21%, and Suleja Mina accounted for the remaining 26%. The corporation is in collaboration with the local communities and other stakeholders to reduce the menace of pipeline vandalism to the barest minimum. This is the 56th edition of the NNPC Monthly Financial Report. And moving on, the 3-day strike scheduled to commence on Wednesday, the 24th of June 2020 by the Nigerian Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPEG, and its Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PEGASIN, has been suspended. It would be recalled that E&E reported that the oil workers had threatened the industrial action based on concerns of alleged forceful enrollment of its members into the Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System, IPPIS. The General Secretary, Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PEGASIN, Mr. Lumumba Okungbowa, disclosed that the decision to suspend the strike action followed the intervention of the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Chief Timipri Silva. He explained to its members via a memo that the matter has been apprehended and discussions are ongoing with the minister. He also explained that the strike action was pursuant to their demand concerning their members working in federal government agencies whose salaries were withheld since May over alleged non-compliance with the federal government's directive by all its agencies to enroll in the IPPS payment platform. And that's all we can take on E&E Thursday edition. Join us again next week, Tuesday, where we'll bring you fresh news stories from the oil, gas, energy, and environment sector. Stay with us.